Could you expand a little bit empirically on the everyday kind of ethnic politics that you explore in the book? Both the ethnic politics between the majority Han and the minority Hui, but also there's a lot of very rich empirical material about different groups of Hui and how they interact and how those interactions shape different Hui identities. So I don't know, those two different empirical categories, if you could speak just a little bit on each of them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I expected to find when I went into the field to do my research was that, maybe some of the large-scale changes in urban environments might heighten the awareness of difference between Han and Hui, or it might, make those divisions more salient or more present in everyone's everyday lives. And what I continually found as I went and talked to people was that actually, the major differentiations, the way that people were talking, the divisions that people were interested in negotiating were all internal. That what the migration of rural Hui to urban settings, or for Western Hui to Eastern communities, a lot of these divisions were drawing lines within the community itself. That really what was being debated was not so much how Hui and Han, sort of existed side by side, but how different expressions of Hui-ness were being expressed. How people brought very different understandings of what it meant to be a part of the Hui community to the table, and that these were being sort of intensified as people from Western places like Gansu or Qinghai or further afield came to places like Shandong or Beijing. There were different and competing traditions, different religious sects, and different just orientations, different localized language dialects, all these things. People had these competing ideas of what it meant to be Hui, and a lot of the exchange that was going on was reopening this idea of Hui-ness as a category. So I think one of the most interesting things was you would have people who would make these really equivocal and really emphatic statements that they were doing Hui identity the right way. That especially in the case of how religious practice was observed, for instance, whether or not you were a regular attendee of prayer was a big deal for some of my respondents, who insisted that if you weren't going to the mosque, regularly as a matter of practice, then somehow you were a fallen Hui. My respondents always like to use this word "danhua" or watered down. And so a lot of times, especially out in West China and Xining, where there are a lot of different religious traditions within the Islamic community, you would get people who would insist that the other groups, the people who belong to this different Sufi tradition or this branch of Islam, they were the ones who were danhua, or they were the ones who were watered down. So it was really interesting to see sort of how when, people who had lived in sort of separate communities were coming together in the midst of migration or change, how these debates were reopened.